Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, this is the 44th episode of the SuperNova Show. And I am your host, Colton Roberts. And this is going to be an exciting show. We're going to do some NFL talk. We're going to talk some Hawkeye. Then we're going to do the movie trivia report. Talk about Schmoedown Spectacular with a special guest that we're going to have on in a little bit. This is going to be good. And of course, we got the Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson to me. We got Mr. Robert Kastner. How you doing, Robert?
Funny you mentioned that because my wife had on Jumanji: Welcome to the Jungle this afternoon. So if I'm The Rock, then you're like the Kevin Hart, I guess.
Okay, I'll take that.
Or the Jack Black. Maybe you're the Jack Black. He's much more.
I would rather be Kevin Hart.
Whoa. Okay. You don't hear that too often.
Yeah. Well, because if you're gonna be The Rock, which he is my favorite. Okay, can I be Nick Jonas?
I was gonna say, do you want to be Nick Jonas? How about Reese Darby? He's hilarious.
Yeah.
Reese Darby is.
No. Can we just move to the second one and I'll just be Aquafina?
Okay, I have no concept of the second one.
Oh,
besides Danny Glover and Danny DeVito being in it, there's two Dannys. So.
Yes, she is in that movie, and it's pretty funny.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm sharing our link on Facebook.
Doing it. Links on Facebook, everybody. Facebook, soon to be Meta.
I think that's yep.
Just remember, as part of the metaverse, we're all going to be metahumans.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yes.
Maybe we'll show up on a weird video drive of a museum curator.
Yep. All right. Now we've got to share this to TNG.
It's getting shared everywhere.
Yep. And
everywhere your eyes could be over the internet sphere. That's where it's going to be. So don't ask us where to get it because you should have already come across it.
That is correct. Yep, and then I got a message.
We will strike you down for your ignorance if you ask us these questions. But maybe not. Maybe not really. Depends on what kind of mood we're in. I don't know what kind of mood Colton's in, everybody.
Yeah, I'm in a good mood.
Okay. Well, there you go.
Something really spicy, and I normally take my time with my food, but we were watching I told you last week, me and the kids and my wife are watching Christmas movies every night.
Yes.
Not always great because we watched the second Christmas Chronicles tonight, but we also watched Elf. So that was good. Second Christmas Chronicles, not so much. And that movie finished at 6:47, and I was like, okay. And so I was eating, and I do not do spicy food. Nope, I do not. Not even a little bit. So I normally take my time, and I ate it within the course of 3 minutes, so I could change clothes, and I made sure to put on a shirt that I knew you would not. Because I remember the last time we tried to do this, we both wore the...
There's no way you have this shirt.
Yeah, you're right. But last time we both wore the Beatles Darth Vader Stormtrooper shirt.
Nope, I tried to avoid that this time.
Yep, so I personally wore my wedding shirt.
Nice.
So hopefully that doesn't happen. But
Why are we wearing Star Wars shirts? You have to wait to find out.
Yes. It was interesting time. They had the video game awards last night.
They did. I watched a little bit of it. The most important thing to me, because I don't care about video game awards as much, because I don't play modern stuff as much, was Sonic the Hedgehog 2 trailer.
Yes, that was good. But also they did a new High Republic game.
Yes. What's it called?
Eclipse.
Thank you.
And that looked really interesting. So I'm excited for that. They did the trailer for the new Halo series, so that's good.
With Pablo Schreiber.
Yeah.
He was awesome.
And I'm trying to think what else they did that was because for the video game awards, they focused more on trailers for upcoming projects more than they did the award ceremony. But
it's kind of funny. It's like they need to honor the designers and whatever for what happened this last year, but it's mostly it's like a D23. We're mostly talking about showcasing what's coming up as opposed to what's happened already. Everything else can just go to the wayside, according to them. But what are you gonna do? Yeah, I did catch a little bit of it. I was watching I watch a YouTube stream called Kind of Funny, and they were reviewing it.
Ah, yes, with Greg Miller and all them.
Greg Miller and Nick Scarpino and them. Yeah. So I was well, I guess he wasn't in that. No, he wasn't in that particular stream. But you know what I'm saying. That's I don't watch things on their own a lot. I watch people react to things.
Yes.
I need to hear a monologue.
Same. And like we're over here being professionals on our show, and it took me like a solid 6 minutes to drop the banner down. That's our segment of the show. Yeah, we're totally professionals. Yep.
You know that to be true.
Yes. I wish we were professional because man, this would be doing this for a living would be so much better than actually doing things.
Much better job.
Yes. But yeah, that's going to be a thing where like not to like I have not produced content on my own channel a lot, so
it's hard, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, it is, but also I just haven't had the drive to do it. Yeah. But that's in the new year. I'm reigniting my drive to do that, so hopefully that will go well.
I need to do the same with my own specific podcast for me, as well as writing the 3 or 4 books with ideas I've come up with, just to prove I can.
I understand. All right, let's move on to some NFL talk.
Do we have to?
Yeah, I was going to ask you how you felt about all of that.
So my Thursday night stunk. I did the last classic in Full Metal. I know we're crossing over with movie trivia stuff, but I lost in the first round, which I've never done ever. So I was really bummed. And I hadn't started watching the game last night. And then I went to start watching it. And it's hard to stay off the internet, even between going from where I am here to record stuff in my office to the TV. But I was like, oh, it sounds like it's not going well. And then one of my faction mates is a Vikings fan. And he's like, are you distracted by the beatdown that my team's putting on yours? And I was like, well, I haven't been watching, so thanks for spoiling that. I was very angry for the majority of that. And then I got happier / angrier because they made me have to care about the game that happened even more. And then they didn't pull it off, which is what happened 3 weeks ago when they were down a bunch, came back, actually took a lead, and lost the game at the end. So I hate the football season. It makes me upset. I find not a whole lot rewarding with it. And that was a nice, I also don't like Thursday games. I like being able to watch my team on Sunday. Watching it on Thursday seems strange and awkward. And it was. It was. For many, many reasons. It was almost the greatest comeback ever in NFL history. They almost did it. Just couldn't come up with that last catch at the end. And there's a lot of things wrong with my team that we don't have to go into. But yeah, not happy today on the memoriam of what had happened last night.
Yeah, Ben didn't play, right?
He did.
He did? Okay.
He did. He almost got knocked out of that game because he was getting destroyed. But then he came back and he was good. He was the best part of that game. He was it's a rare thing to say nowadays, but he played the whole game and he was great. And the last pass that didn't get caught was as perfect of a throw as you could get. Just the defender made a good play and our guy didn't hold on to it. It was a bummer. I think it would have been ultimately more exciting had he caught that and then we go to the 2-point conversion to see if they could tie. I think that would have been ultimately more exciting, but it is what it is. My team stinks. They're mediocre. What are you going to do?
Yeah, and then, of course, like, the Patriots beat the Bills.
In the weirdest game you've ever seen in the 21st century, that was more like a 1930s game as opposed to a 2020s game, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, the Patriots won. Their quarterback threw 3 times. Hilarious. And they ran the ball down the Bills' throat. I think the Patriots are going to get the 1 seed, which is stupid. But when you get to play the Dolphins and the Jets twice, and you get to play the AFC South, then you get a nice schedule to come up with a good. I mean, I can't talk about my team. My team screwed up easy games. I'm just saying that they have a really easy schedule. Before they played each other, I had no concept of if they were actually good or not because all the teams they played were kind of crappy. I think the Patriots are pretty good.
Yeah, and then of course, like the Buccaneers won, so that was
Yeah, they dominated. I mean, that their division is a crap show. I mean, the Saints beat them, and the Saints were right there with them, and then the Saints decided to lose 5 straight games because their quarterback tore his ACL, and they haven't recovered yet. So they have that division in the bag. The interesting thing to me is that the Cardinals are the best team technically, if you look at it, especially now that they got Kyler Murray back, but nobody wants to talk about them making the Super Bowl, even though they might be the 1 seed and get the bye in the NFC, which is a top-heavy conference, but that's definitely a conference you want the bye in. But that'll be. I mean, they have a tough game against the Rams. They already destroyed the Rams, so if they beat the Rams again, then that division's in the bag for them. And then, I mean, I forget what other huge games there are this week. Kansas City plays Oakland. I did it again. Kansas City plays Vegas. That's a big divisional game, even though I don't foresee Kansas City losing that game. The Bills play the Bucks in a nice inter conference matchup, which is a good one between good teams. The Ravens play the Browns. The Browns played the Ravens, then went on bye, and then they have to play the Ravens again. It's kind of funny. And I mean, we're coming down to the end. It's the last quarter. There are still a lot of playoff spots. Nothing's clinched in any way, shape, or form. Especially in the AFC, where I think you have like 13 teams, and they're all within like 2 games of each other, which is really stupid. The Dolphins were 1-7, and they won 5 straight games, and now they're in the playoff hunt. So stupid. But that's the reality we live in. Don't know what to make of it.
yeah.
And yes, I still believe Tom Brady will be the MVP.
Good. I will totally.
It should have been Kyler, but he got hurt too. He missed too many games, unfortunately. Unless he plays like gangbusters these last 5 games and they win all of them and the Cardinals get the 1 seed. Maybe you could make an argument, but I think missing 3 games and your team having a winning record in 3 games with you out is a bad sign for your candidacy.
Yep. But yeah, it's interesting. Like I don't see how any of that's gonna like. I mean, I still see Bucks versus Patriots at the Super Bowl.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
I don't see how that can happen. I don't see how Mac Jones as a rookie can get all the way through. And trust me, my team had Ben have win 13 straight games, but they lost in the AFC Championship game to the Patriots. I don't foresee how Mac Jones as a rookie can get through the gauntlet. It just doesn't make sense to me. Some stupid team will beat him. I just don't know which one.
Yeah.
My money right now would be on Kansas City and the Bucks again, which is annoying to me because we just did it, but that's what I think is going to happen.
All right. Yeah. That would be good. Like my dad's side of the family is from Kansas City, so like Dad he cheers for the Cowboys and then he cheers for Kansas City, and I cheer for the Buccaneers / anyone that Cam Newton is not on. So now I can't cheer for the Panthers anymore.
Oh yeah, they have a big game. They're playing the Falcons. That's a big game.
Yep.
Technically, not for anything worthwhile, just a big game in general.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's it's a interesting time for.
Yeah, we're coming down the stretch. Like I said, it's weird. Usually, you might have something sewn up by now, but even the division, the Cowboys division, which it seemed they were running away with, they decided to falter, and Washington decided to win 4 straight games, and they're playing this week, and Mike McCarthy guaranteed a victory for Dallas. But if Washington wins that game, that division is all of a sudden up for grabs, and it's weird. But usually there's some sort of clarity. There's not really like everything is technically up in the air besides maybe the Bucks winning the South and the Packers winning the North. I think those maybe be the only ones.
Okay, so I have a question. As someone who doesn't really know a lot about sports, why is it that the divisions are divided the way that they are?
I mean, it used to be that they had divisions like the one the Steelers was in had like Jacksonville in it and Tennessee, which made even less sense to me. They called it the Central. They just decided, I mean, some of them make geographic sense. I guess they thought these would make the most geographic sense. Like the North, everybody's within 200 miles of each other, 150 miles of each other.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. The Wests are usually pretty close, except for Seattle, which is up there or away from everybody else. I guess they just decided they thought it would make the most sense for travel purposes. That's usually what it is. It's usually for travel purposes. It's the same thing why in basketball, for instance, they won't do just the 16 best teams. They have to do the conferences.
Yeah.
Because everybody's like, why don't you just do the 16 best teams? There's teams with winning records who are left out of the playoffs when there's teams with losing records who get in simply because of where it is they're located. And everybody goes, well, that you have to travel all the way. And people don't want to pay for that. And especially now in times of COVID.
Yeah, like all of the NFC ones make sense except for the NFC East. Like Washington, Eagles, and the Giants, that's all the East Coast, and then it's Texas.
Well, I mean, they needed another one. I think they were considered Dallas was the East for a long time, if I remember correctly. So they just didn't want to change that. And all the rivalries for them, the big rivalries, are in the East. So, like, well, we want to keep that. I think that has something to do with it, too.
Okay. Yeah, because I was thinking as well, I was like, yeah, all the other ones, they kind of work. Well, Indianapolis isn't really a southern place, but besides so for the AFC South, that doesn't exactly work with locationally either. But yeah, I don't know.
I understand why
you could
might be questioning about it.
Yeah, you can flip flop those two teams technically, the Cowboys and the Colts, and then all of them would be geographically sound. But
yeah,
something to do with the old NFL versus AFL days, right?
That has something to do with it too. I guess if you did that, you could make a budding rivalry between Houston and Dallas.
Yeah.
But I mean, Houston stinks, but you know what I mean? Like for the sake of proximity, that would be more interesting. But for everybody else, they've been rivals with the Giants and Washington and Philly forever. And they want to have as many games.
The Texans used to be in Tennessee, right?
They used to be the Oilers. And then they moved. Well, no, sorry. Houston was an expansion team. Tennessee was the Oilers, and then they were the Titans. Well, sorry. Houston were the Oilers, and then they moved to Tennessee, and were the Tennessee Oilers, and then the Tennessee Titans. So, yes, Houston ended up being Tennessee, and then they made a new Houston franchise. It's like how Baltimore used to be Cleveland. Yeah. Cleveland moved to Baltimore, and then they made a new Cleveland franchise.
Yes. Yeah, and then there's like the Carolina Panthers that represents 2 states. And then there's
I don't know what that's about.
Yeah, and then there's states where like up until the Raiders left, California had what, 4 teams?
Niners, Chargers, Raiders, and
Rams.
Yeah.
And then New York has 3 or 4 teams, which technically one of them is in
New York has 3,
but
they have Jets, Giants, and Bills.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But the Jets and Giants play in New Jersey. So.
Yeah. Which I mean, we've had that discussion before.
We have had that discussion.
How that doesn't make any sense. I'm sure it's a great like tax break because New Jersey is just like, hey, I want things over here.
Easier sites to build stadiums in that are close enough to New York that can get enough people, as opposed to like Buffalo, which is in Orchard Park, which is nowhere. So they wanted it close enough to the city, and New Jersey is decently close to the city.
Yeah.
And tax break more than likely as well. Yes. And you can gamble in Jersey.
Yes. Atlantic City. All right, so let's move on to Hawkeye episode 4.
Partners, am I right?
Yeah, partners, am I right? So like last week we talked about how okay, let's throw up the spoiler tag real quick.
Yes, please.
How I thought, oh yeah, it's gonna be like Jack's gonna like be shoving the knife at, or the sword at Clint, and then it's gonna be a big old misunderstanding. And like they immediately open with that.
I mean, yeah, if you saw the trailers,
which like I have not watched a single trailer for this show.
Okay.
Because I was just like, okay, I'm gonna stop watching trailers for the shows. I still watch the movie trailers because I can't not, except for like the next week where I'm not gonna probably play on the internet at all until Thursday because of the fact that the premiere is Monday and someone's date is gonna just be like, hey, I was just in the Spider-Man No Way Home premiere. Superman showed up and cut off Logan's head. Something dumb like that.
I'd be all for that, honestly.
Yeah. Well, I have to throw a scenario out there that's so wild that it can't possibly come true because there's no way Warner Brothers would let.
You're gonna feel like an asshole when it does come true.
Yeah, when it does, I'm gonna go play the lottery that afternoon because there's no way I can be that lucky.
Well, there was a trailer, I think maybe after the first 2 episodes, where Clint and Kate are at the table with Vera Farmiga, and she says, "So my daughter's helping you with an Avengers level threat," and I just assumed that that scene at the end of episode 3 would just lead into that conversation, which it did. So,
but I like that he got the sword back.
He did. He just took it.
Yeah.
He's like, I'll take this.
So I have a question. I know a lot of people have talked about like the watch, because it's obviously important because his wife is going after it or is helping him go after it, and he's like, this will reveal the identity of someone. And I'm like, so there were 2 things I thought when I saw that was I thought, okay, it's either going to reveal him as Ronin to the world, but now people have said that what if his wife is the Bobby Morse character from the comics, and that it's actually she now has a secret identity. So that once she left S.H.I.E.L.D., she wanted to go under the radar, so she created this Laura Barton character.
Makes sense.
And like, I only don't want that to happen because Bobby Morse appears in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and if that happens, they're just like throwing Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. even more under the rug. Which
probably wouldn't call her Bobby Morse or whatever. Then they probably would call her something else, but keep that concept.
Yeah, well, and they get married in the comics, so it makes sense. Like they would use the name, and like they've already kind of thrown Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. under the bus a little bit, even though like I love that show, but like that's one of those things where me and Amaru, we would always rant about it, is how good the show is and how Marvel Studios has not done anything with it. Like WandaVision has the Darkhold, and they made sure that they designed it differently than it appeared in the show, so that they're like, yep, it's not the same book and crap. But yeah, like, so I think that could be a possibility, or the Ronin thing, because like I like that Kate found out this week.
Yeah, I'm glad she put it together finally. It's good.
Yeah.
I was just like, we were watching it, my wife and I, and she's talking about like I forget how she words it before she says it's you, isn't it? Doesn't she say like, because this has to do with the Ronin, the identity of the Ronin? It's just like, come on, just come up, just make the leap of faith that it's him. Just make that connection. There's one dot. Just draw the connecting arrow to it. She did. I was like, thank you. We don't need to hold on this. There's only 2 more episodes left, which is something I want to talk about here in a second.
Yeah, I kind of hate that because the show's finally, like, the first 2 episodes were good. Well, 3 and 4 I thought were great. And the end of 3 introduced things in there that I'm like, how are you going to resolve this in 2 episodes?
That's the problem, isn't it?
Yep. Like,
how are we going to like bringing the watch thing back, which was obviously important because they highlighted it on episode 1, but bringing the watch thing back, and I was like, you're bringing the watch thing in too? There's 2 episodes left.
Yeah, so unless the episodes are both an hour long or close to it. And
like, it was longer, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, technically it was longer. I think it was the same length, but they had longer credits, which it was like 10 minutes worth of credits. So I remember I was hitting my button, kept on going for an end credit scene.
I guess we won't. Maybe we get one.
Yeah, next week, I guess.
Yeah.
Or maybe the finale.
Yeah.
Like,
I honestly did not think we were going to get Yelena this early, but thinking about what we just talked about, you have to introduce her at some point, right? You got to get that ball rolling too.
Yeah, like honestly, I thought she was going to show up at the end of the season, and then they would do like a Loki thing and be like, season 2, blah.
If there's a season 2, it's not going to have Jeremy Renner in it.
Yeah, like I don't want them to kill him. Like I've seen people be like,
he'll be incapacitated.
Yeah, I've seen people
taking a lot of beatings. Is the point of my favorite part so far of everything was when Kate asked, "How did you lose your hearing?" and they just show all the cutscenes of him getting his ass kicked.
Yeah,
like, I don't know. Could be anything. That's my favorite part so far because it makes the most sense of anything that's ever been.
Yeah, and like he's the only one. Like you see, like he has repercussions to his body.
Yes.
Where, Nat, when she fell off the.
Oh my god, I hate that part.
Everything on the way down, and then just got up and walked away.
You're like that part.
I'm like, so much. I understand that you can do that stuff, but guess what? You should not. Just because she survives until Endgame doesn't mean you have to throw her off buildings and stuff.
You don't. No, I forget what happened during one of these things, but I remember looking at my wife. I'm like, he's old. Clint is old. He's got to stop.
Yeah.
It's so bad. I think it's when he put all the packs of like the fruit stuff from the freezer on him. Like, he's old.
Yeah, and like that's the one thing, like you don't really see that with superhero stuff. People pack themselves back up, and I loved it.
It humanizes him more. His acting's gotten, I guess I should say the writing's gotten better because they let him do more. I like that conversation about how, even though I didn't buy a lick of it when he said people dealt with the blip differently, I was like, oh yeah, murderous rampages. I'm sure a lot of people dealt with it that way. But I liked that, she was like, people were just trying to survive. You did what you had to do. And it's over now. And he's like, no, it's tied to me. It's like a weight on my neck. And I was like, that's awesome. That's so cool. That's a cool prospect for a superhero in this universe, minus Tony Stark, whose villains always came back to bite him in the ass. It's really good idea to have this pathos just like following him like a ghost. That Endgame actually mattered for him too. And not in the way that we would have thought. Exactly.
Yes. Yeah, like it's very interesting. I guess we'll get to see Elena do her thing.
That episode had 4 Oscar nominees in it. 4. There's 4 Oscar nominated actors who participate in this dumbass holiday Hawkeye show.
Yeah.
It's so stupid. What's going on, Colton? What's going on?
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I know you could say that about any of the MCU stuff, but I'm just saying, like, in a show with this few characters that 4 of them are Oscar nominated, it's...
Well, I mean, that is kind of a thing, right? Like, Marvel goes and gets all the good actors for stuff.
I guess. I don't know why they decided to do it.
Like, it's so weird. Like, in Endgame, like, they make 2 references to movies in Endgame. Like, he's like, he calls Thor Big Lebowski,
He does.
which, has Obadiah Stane in it. And then they also they reference Hot Tub Time Machine.
They like Time Cop, Terminator, Hot Tub Time Machine,
which has Sebastian Stan in it. Like
Die Hard. No, wait, that's not one.
Yeah, which also, hey, internet out there, Die Hard is not a Christmas movie. It is a movie that takes place at Christmas.
I vacillate on it a little bit.
Trust me, I tried to convince my wife to let us watch it as a Christmas movie, and she was not down for that.
Well, I mean, that's just in your household.
Yeah, well, and I've also heard a lot of other people say that as well. They're like, it's just a movie that takes place, like Bruce Willis has apparently said.
So what, you would say Batman Returns isn't a Christmas movie? Come on, Colton.
I would not at all.
Oh my gosh, no, of course it's not a tradition. Hold on, let's say it this way. It's not a traditional Christmas movie.
Okay, I'll give you that. And all right, so now
what do you see going forward, I guess, before we move on?
Okay, so yeah, I think they'll announce a season 2, and that will be the entire but unless they make them hour-long things, because of course we still have to figure out, is Wilson Fisk the uncle?
Oh, you just said it.
Yeah, well, we're still in spoiler.
I guess you threw it right back up before you said it. That's good.
Yeah, but hey, I'm not going to talk about who or what plays him.
Okay.
Because heck, it could be who played him in the first Daredevil movie.
Michael Clark Duncan. He's deceased, unfortunately.
Okay, so it can't be him.
No.
It could be Vincent D'Onofrio. It could be Liev Schreiber.
Oh.
He's it in Into the Spider-Verse, right?
Yeah, but they would have to really him or fat suit him up.
Well, I mean, they're doing something very similar to Oswald Cobblepot in the Batman, so they could do it.
I guess but that's a $100 million. That's a $200 million movie that has that. Marvel's not putting up that kind of resources for this stupid Hawkeye show.
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying, he could be introduced in the Hawkeye show, and then, this week, Kevin Feige came out and said that if they ever do Daredevil, it's going to be Charlie Cox as Daredevil.
Yes, good. He needs to work more.
Yeah, so if they ever make a Daredevil movie or whatever, this person, whoever is Wilson Fisk, which Wilson Fisk shows up in Spider-Man and a bunch of crap, in Punisher stuff, so it's possible that they
New York crime stuff. He's there. Yeah. If it's a Marvel New York crime story, he's probably behind it, which is why everybody thinks he's behind this. Quality-wise, I don't think there will be a season 2, which means I think they will haphazardly throw together all the conclusions of this within the next 2 episodes, and I think it will make the show suffer. But I do think it will be fun to get. They did say that I watched a review, and they did talk about how it's a nice poetic connection, that original Hawkeye and original Black Widow had a nice relationship, and they're intimating that Hawkeye 2 and Black Widow 2, a la Kate and Yelena, will have a nice relationship. So
yeah, and I've thought about that too, is technically they're doing an Echo show, so they could resolve all her uncle plot line in that show, introduced it here, but the last 2 episodes have to do with Elena and Clint.
Okay, but we still have to conclude the Ronin thing and the Watch thing.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot, but
we also have to clear Kate's name too.
Yeah,
that all has to be done in 2 episodes.
But yeah, okay, so now we're going to end this. Our special guest should be on in just a minute. So let's this week they had the trailer to the Harry Potter thing.
Oh yeah, I didn't watch that.
Oh, it made me cry.
Of course. I know you. I know it would make you.
Yeah, it didn't even feature any of the big three. It just.
But they did have the first, in relation to the trailer, they did have the first shot, the first image of the three of them in the Gryffindor common room.
Yeah, like it had Arthur Weasley getting his letter for it, and then Robbie Coltrane, and then.
Oh my gosh, that's cute.
Yeah, and it's not him as Hagrid; it's him just being a regular dude.
Yeah.
And all like the music and stuff, it made me cry.
They wouldn't make Robbie Coltrane get dressed up in the Hagrid thing just for this stupid trailer.
Yeah.
And by the way, when I say stupid things, I'm saying it as a term of endearment, but it is silly as compared to doing it for him.
But yeah, and then of course, like they released that next Tuesday. I think it's Tuesday. Is when the Secrets of Dumbledore trailer is coming out.
Oh God.
And I am so excited. Like, I remember when we talked about this like 6 months ago, and we were like, this movie's never going to happen. And now the movie is coming out in April. We're getting a trailer next week. I'm excited.
Can I ask you one critical question?
Yes.
Did J.K. Rowling write this movie?
I believe that she did.
Okay, well then it doesn't mean anything to me. I just assume it's going to be bad.
Yeah. I mean,
nothing against her as a writer. Everything against her as a person, but nothing against her as a novel writer. But she cannot write a script to save her life.
Yeah, but I mean, that's a weird thing. Like she wrote the I think the Cursed, like people are going to be out there and they're going to hate me if they're Harry Potter fans, but I love the Cursed Child.
I don't mind it.
I love
it pisses me off.
Like now that like I have disposable income and stuff, I want to go to New York and watch the play. But COVID has made that impossible.
We're going to get through the entire Greek alphabet. I'm just saying.
Yeah. But
at least, if not more. It might be like hurricanes. We might just have to keep coming up with names for.
Yeah, please don't. But yeah, like there's that, and I really like. I mean, the first Fantastic Beast is good, and I love Crimes of Grindelwald because it's.
You're never gonna get me to change my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's not a great movie, but it is a great Harry Potter story.
Okay.
So
I disagree.
I understand.
I disagree on all counts. Erroneous on both counts is what I say.
Yeah, and okay. Our special guest is here now. So let's bring out the reigning, defending, undefeated, undisputed Star Wars champion of the world, the Major Thomas Harper.
Gentlemen, how are you?
Doing well. I love the belt over there on Captain Rex. So
thank you.
So how you doing, sir?
Relaxed for now.
Big win last weekend. That was spoiler alert out there.
Yeah, if anybody who doesn't know.
Whoops.
Belt there. So I figured I brought that up immediately before thinking of
I bought this at a yard sale.
Or he just didn't want to give it back.
That's true. I ran away and went straight to LAX.
Yeah. But yeah, thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks for inviting me. I know we've been back and forth for a while now, but my schedule finally cleared up.
Yes, I understand. Like I know, I mean, you're an Army man. You got to do, you're helping defend the country. So, and then you're also, being a Star Wars champion. So, like
priorities.
Yes. But yeah, I know. Like it was probably a few months ago. I posted in the Schmodown thing where, hey, we need a show in North Carolina. And both you and Amory were like, yes. And
completely agree.
Yeah. And so I know you're from NC, Greensboro, right?
Yep. Born and bred.
Yep. I'm from Winston-Salem. So like right up.
Excellent. Yep. Just down the road.
Yep.
I visited North Carolina a few times. That's
should have stayed. That's the worst mistake in my life was leaving.
Oh.
Yeah. It's the best. I love it. But yeah, so we typically do predictions on the show for the spectacular, and I was like 2 for 5.
I was 3 for 5. I beat you again.
Yes.
Just
your
for
shoulders
on the
off.
record.
Yeah. So the only ones I got right were Dan and then you beating Nikki.
Okay.
And
Okay.
I was like, because there's those were the two, and the other three I got categorically wrong. And
I going back through it, I mean, this might be the only spectacular ever where everybody defends.
This was the only, this was the first time. I remember, so a little peek behind the curtain. Let's see here. Which match was this after? So I came down during the Roka match to get my camo off because that took the entire Roka match to remove, and I didn't get it all off. It was I'm still finding it on myself. But so I go down there and Christian had popped down and he was just beside himself. He was like, and there were still 2 matches to go. And he goes, we've never had a spectacular where everybody is defended. He was like kind of in shock. And people were like, don't worry. There's 2 more. Like Kaiser was down there. He's like, don't worry. We'll take care of that. But yeah, it was one of those moments where you're sort of like, I sat back. I was like, wow, that'd be crazy if history was made. But that's kind of cool that that's been recognized. And lo and behold, it bared out.
Yeah. So I have a few questions for you. I know like Christian has talked about potentially having the Star Wars division add the shows. And I asked Gold Leader in his AMA yesterday about that, and he said he would hate it, but he would do it anyway. So how would you feel about that?
Yeah, I think so. It opens a Pandora's box. I've advocated all year for some sort of rejiggering. Honestly, I think the FCL has shown a model that works, and you don't need to replicate it 100%. But what you can do is you can recalibrate round 2 because round 1's fine. If you want to mix in a question or a mixed bag question where it's coming from some other weirdo category, that's fine. But I don't think there's any issue with round 1, and I think the categories in round 3, while they could certainly add some, and that'd be cool, I think they're okay as well because you get stuff like Star Wars Underworld, Jedi Order, which is my 5-point category. That round, no complaints on that round. But round 2 is the only round where it's only the movies. So I think if you were to mix up the wheel and get rid of either reduce the number or get rid of entirely the pure movie slices, so bring it back to like Schmodown, Star Wars Division Schmodown of old, where it got its roots, and the FCL has looked a little bit like that this season. I think that would inject some newness into it, and B, all of a sudden supercharge round 2 with some strategy, because it's hard for me. Like I know, like Evan, for example, good example, favorite movie, either Empire or The Last Jedi, but is he really that much stronger in those movies than he is with a movie that he likes a little bit less? It's just, I think the nature of the Star Wars fans that play in the division is that nobody has like a least favorite movie. It's like a movie that we might not jump to watch immediately, right? So that becomes tough. It almost saps the strategy out of it. But all of a sudden, if you interject wheel slices like vehicle weapons and tech, then that starts to get interesting, because then you're deep diving into a really particular slice of Star Wars fandom. And I think you could go back and watch old matches with like a new eye on those performances and see, okay, well, like even something like quotes and quotables or who said it. I mean, those have been categories on the wheel in the past. And I think certain players, you might adjust your strategy based on how they've performed in question types like that. So I don't think you need to upend anything. I would love to see some of that stuff in there, quite frankly, like selfishly, because it's just fun to answer questions out of those. It gives me an excuse to watch that material again. Like the best thing about Dragon Con isn't getting like beat the hell up by tough questions. It's that every year I have an excuse to go back and do a Clone Wars rewatch or a Rebels rewatch, and to get that opportunity in the Schmodown, like to not feel guilty about watching Rebels or Clone Wars in season. That'd be nice.
Yeah, because of course, like they could add the Mandalorian or the Book of Boba Fett, and if they just kept it live action, that would be simple enough. Because Mandalorian has 16 episodes, and we assume that Book of Boba Fett will have 8.
And those are feature film level productions, both in like the cash that's being dumped into them and the care and resources that are being poured into them. And
then of course, like I would love if they did Rebels, because Rebels is my favorite piece of Star Wars content that they've ever
made. Smart man.
And like
mentions it all the time.
Yeah. Like, because he's never watched Rebels.
I haven't. No.
I'm telling him like it's the best Star Wars content that they've ever made.
And I understand. I've gotten in and seen bits and pieces. I just haven't sat down to watch it as life gets in the way, unfortunately.
Yeah. In the AMA, they talked about how someone asked how he felt about them making it where you might not be able to write on your board in the second and third rounds anymore. How do you feel about that? And I have not ever seen an official announcement about that. I've tried looking, but I don't know where that information comes from.
I think Christian mentioned it during the presser, during the pre-spectacular presser. I guess I should feel flattered that they feel the need to adjust the league to me. Like, when's the last time that they've introduced a major rule change like that really, I mean, I'm not the first player to play with my board after round 1. I seem to be the first player that's gotten attention for it, because Parker, Oyama before him, there were Mara, quite frankly, even at the beginning of the season when she won the belt, all players that were playing with their board. I'm not a pioneer on that front. For some reason, people, I don't know if it's like the stickers and patches that I have on the back of mine, or just the way that I play the game. For some reason, people paid attention to it, and it's like the Harper thing now. And so I'll take ownership that if the rule changes, like I'm at fault for it. It started honestly as a way not to like out of strategy, but to keep my hands in view, because my camera sits on top of my monitor, and I'm like practicing before my first match, and I'm like, well, this is awkward. Like this is like Talladega Nights. Like, what am I doing with my hands? I had a whiteboard there. I was like, it's really easy to just hold it. And then nobody has any questions, and everybody can see that my pen is in my hand. There's no issues there. And from there, it sort of morphed into a thing that I use strategic. At this point, it's almost like a character itself. So it's a shame if it has to go. It's like, there's Harper's whiteboard with its duct tape on it and everything. So to be honest, I'll pull back the curtain a little bit on this. At no point in the lead up to Spectacular did I practice with my board. I practiced some round 1 stuff and practice with the board in that sense, but I was fully prepared for them to yank the board just short notice. And there's not really an opportunity on stage that you're not going to stop the show to argue about something like that. So I practiced that way. It didn't really faze me. I'd be sad to see it go, but we'll see what the new rule book holds.
Most significant rule change since JTE. You might be in line with JTE. That's quite a
the Harper board retrieval rule. I don't know.
The Freddie Prinze Jr. rule, where you have to write it down and say the thing that you're because both me and Robert have played in the fan leagues, and you're absolutely right. Like, especially if you're going to multiple choice, or if you don't know how to pronounce something. Like, I have gotten Star Trek questions wrong before because I didn't know how to pronounce Spock's father. But if I wrote his name down, it was like, I don't know how to pronounce this. It's Sarek or Serac or whatever. Or if you're multiple choice, crossing out which ones are wrong is totally a viable thing.
Yeah. I have taken issue with the small minority of fans that have called it out as somehow against the spirit of the game. For one, you weren't saying that when Mara did it. You weren't saying that when Parker did it, or anybody else. For some reason, I do it, and suddenly you've manifested this problem with it. Also, the problems that people have cited, such as like writing down the question, and I heard one argument that you know, hey, he's writing down the question, and why, you know, then what's the point of the JTE? That made no sense to me. I'm like, a JTE rule was created so that you didn't endlessly stretch out the 15 seconds so that you could think about things. Also, I've never written the question out. I write down like certain things that are helpful to me, but often if I'm like, there are plenty of times where I'm like moving my hand, there's nothing being written down. Like, there's nothing at all. Or I will intentionally, and I did this, I've done this when I was a trial attorney in court. You think that I'm writing something that down like that, and that makes you nervous. You think that I'm like furiously, especially in round 2, you think that I'm putting down your answer. Am I? I don't know. Maybe not.
I've done it with the board. Somebody called it out after like a perfect first round. Like, you don't need to write it down. I'm like, yeah, but I like it for security. I just like to have it there. That's what I'm used to.
Why not? It's not against the rules.
We have somebody in the leagues. Sometimes they will do it where they will pretend to write stuff down, especially if it's a whiteboard thing, to make you believe that the answer is very long, so that you might not know what it is. You might think it's a long answer, but they'll continue to write.
That's smart. I like that.
The heck out of you.
Yeah, I like that. The mind games I like.
Yeah.
You know, there people called me out at the beginning of the season and called out Marie and called out Zach and said the biggest problem that we would have, the biggest challenge would be adjusting to the Schmodown. It's different. It's a different game. I'd like to think, and I won't speak for either of them, but I came in with a fresh view of this game and things that I thought would advantage me, and ways in which I could approach a division where nobody thought that strategy had a place. Not because of skill of players, but just because of 12 movies and, you know, what can you really do? Everybody's strong, this, that, and the other. I'd like to think that I found ways, you know, maybe not to disadvantage others, but to advantage myself and strengthen my gameplay in the process. So, and if people are upset about that, if that's what's generating like angst about a little whiteboard, I don't care. And quite frankly, I have no problem. There's a reason why at the end of the match, I flipped my board around and showed my answer. I don't want anybody to think that there's anything like wrong going on behind the board. And I have nothing to hide. Like, there's nothing ever to hide there. Like, if you want to see the doodles that I do, or the stupid, like the blankness that's on there, fine. I don't care. So, yeah.
Okay. So I know, like, Kate had that big moment where she fired all the Dan except you and Saul.
Yeah.
So, I have a question. Do you think she regrets trading Marisol?
I don't think so. I wasn't in the faction. I wasn't even in the league when that move and that roster, that trade was hashed out. I do not. I think that it was a mutually beneficial, like, intended move. Marisol didn't sign with the Den because she wanted to play with Kate. Marisol signed with Kate. It was a sign and trade deal. I mean, you see it in pro sports all the time. She knew for a fact that she would not survive until Shannon's pick, or at least there was a high enough risk that she would not last, that that she would get snapped up and end up playing on a faction that for whatever reason she didn't want to play on. Shannon was her manager. The corruption was her faction. And so it was mutually beneficial to both sides at the time to work that deal. Obviously, we have the benefit of hindsight now, and you can judge that trade however you feel like. But it was beneficial for Marisol. She ended up where she wanted to go. Corruption got, you know, in hindsight, you know, potentially a future GOAT candidate, and a very, very elite singles player. Kate, in turn, got what she believed at the time was appropriate value. And I would argue at the time, without hindsight, was appropriate value. Two picks, effectively 2 first-round picks for Marisol. Like, that was good value. How you use those picks is a different story. But, you know, what are you going to say to that? Like, Kate wasn't like December 2021 Kate with that knowledge. The deal might have been different. But, you know, nobody knew that she was going to go on that tear. Nobody knew with certainty that she was going to go on that tear. Maybe Adam Collins knew with some level of certainty. Marisol probably knew with a degree of certainty. But at the time, she was a very good player coming off of, a decent season, somebody that was on the rise.
Colton, here's a analogy you might not get, but now I get to think of Marisol like Eli Manning. She didn't
Paul
want
Preston, yeah, Paul Preston said that. I don't agree with the connotation. Like, I don't know of any facts that Marisol was refusing to play for anybody, and I don't want, like, Eli Manning. That situation was very charged because he very much was a baby about the whole thing. And
that is
I'm a Phillip Rivers fan. I went to NC State and watched Rivers play at the end of his career, so like I was in a way invested in that differently than a lot of people. I won't put that on Marisol. I think Marisol, like many, like if I were in the same position, I want to play for Kate next season. Hey, I'm willing to put myself through a deal like that to get back to the den if that's the position. So I don't falter at all for that.
That's fair. You're right. I took the attitude part out of it. I was just thinking about somebody wanting to be traded and or not wanting to be traded, but ended up being traded, and they got the better end of the deal technically because they got championships and the other faction did not. Beyond you, of course. Colton, do you mind if I ask Thomas a question?
Yeah, you absolutely.
It's a question I've been thinking about. Thomas, is it harder to defend the country, defend your title, or defend your household against youngsters destroying it?
The little ones, definitely. They don't respect me. They don't like on the trivia stage, people, I would like to think at this point, respect, if not fear, the knowledge that they're going against. I feel like I have like a physical presence and training and experience on the Army side that, at least somebody might think twice about pulling some stuff. Here, my daughters don't care. They don't care. They don't care about Star Wars. They care about, like, you are the obstacle in between me and that chocolate or whatever they want. So
yeah,
tough life. It's like Rodney Dangerfield. I get no respect.
Yeah, that's parenting. I have a 12-year-old, an 11-year-old, and one on the way. So
you've been in it.
They're all boys, and which is a lovely time for my wife. Just surrounded by men, but
slowly creating a basketball team.
Yeah, actually, what I've said is I'm slowly creating a Dungeons and Dragons table.
That's a great way to look. I love that. That's
like
awesome.
I already got 2 players, and in like 10 years I'll have a third one. So
yeah, player 3 has entered the game. I like that.
That's right. So at least last 2 questions for me is who in the league, the Star Wars league, do you want to play the most? Is the first question.
I've almost batted for this cycle. I mean, there'll be much like hand wringing and ink spilled between, or like characters typed between now and January when the awards happen, about awards and stuff like that. I would like to think that my resume so far, as out of control, like as out of my control as it's been, has been the who's who of the division, at least this season. So I played that dastardly devil gold leader, beat him, played Nikki, beat her, had to go perfect to beat both of them. Played let's see here, played Ace into sudden death. Played Wit in the game of his life, and played Whiteley, who and I'm forgetting somebody very important. Oh, Andrew. That should I played Andrew. So like the creme de la creme, like the best performers from season 8 I have played, right? So I would like to add to that list with top performers. And so I look at people like a Zach Burkett, I think Alex is going to get back on his feet. I think Laura Kelly is going to get back on her feet. I would love to play any of them. I'll play anybody any day. I think my season has demonstrated that. But I think the 3 of them would be a lot of fun. I can just imagine the promos between myself and Laura now with where I am character wise, like how that's going to go. So
yeah, the picture that Alex posted on Twitter the other day of him coming for your belt and you just holding your hand out and he's like fighting you was like the funniest thing I've seen on the internet all week. And I was like,
try.
I want to see you guys. And like, yeah, he is such a nice dude. Like, like I've told this story before and my wife knows this, but I almost proposed at Star Wars Celebration at a
Oh,
Schmodel.
that's awesome.
And Alex was defending the title there. So he messaged me and was like, if you want to do this, I'll make sure Christian helps you out. And
That's
I was,
awesome.
yeah. And then I thought about it and I was like, my wife would be like, she does not like the attention and she would want to be around her family.
Oh,
so I changed the idea for her.
Smart man. Yeah,
But
it's about
yeah, it's about the woman, not like me. I thought it was a great idea, and then I was like, she is so
it's a selfless act. I appreciate that.
Yeah. But yeah, so yeah, like my dream match is you versus Alex. Like,
That'd be a lot of fun. Alex and I go way back to like 2014, 2015. And I first knew him as like the formidable opponent who had the entire crowd somehow behind him. I had no idea that he had a YouTube channel or a following or anything like that. I just knew that he was real popular, and I did not know him, and that he was very, very good at trivia. And so slowly that changed, and I owe my place in the league to both him and Molly. So he and I are like the Batman and Joker, akin to what I've kind of fostered with Gold Leader, but we're destined to go at this forever.
And then my last question, at least for me, at least right now, is: are there any of the other leagues that you would like to play in, like either it be singles, teams, or IG?
Man, if I could survive and not embarrass myself in IG, I think it would be fun. I think and I come at that, I think, from the same level that Alex did when he came into IG. It was this fun excursion that was not Star Wars, where there was a little bit more play in the matches. You could get some stuff wrong. You could, he could dabble in other fandoms that he's interested in. But in talking to him, as soon as the expansion happened, it became work, and just to keep up. And so it's like, looking at the list, I think it's probably likely that we see another expansion or a change in the movie list for IG. That's daunting to me. And if you saw me play along with the singles, teams, or GOAT match, you don't want me in singles or teams. I'd be good if like Lucasfilm or Star Wars was on the wheel and got spun. Beyond that, I'm like relatively useless. I think I got, I don't know if it was the GOAT match or the singles title where the Martian was asked about. I got that question right out of the gate, and I was like on cloud 9, like happier than any moment in the Star Wars match. And then from there, it was just complete crash and burn.
Yeah, like that's how I feel about IG as well. Like, I used to do so well when I would do play-alongs because I used to be in the fan leagues, and I've retired since then because
he's not fully retired, Thomas. Don't let him.
No, like I've told Robert that the only league I could actually play in well would be Star Wars because it's like 12 movies.
Yeah.
As a person who works from their home, I could watch 3 movies in the background every single day if I really wanted to, and read the source books. Like,
and I've contended he could watch other 3 movies and be just as fine. So I will argue with you on this to the guy.
There are over 200 geek movies, and there are over 20,000 singles movies that I would have to watch, and I don't like them
down.
And I don't like them. At least I like Star Wars.
Yeah.
That's really the kicker, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the moment that you're watching R.I.P.D. instead of Empire Strikes Back, you start to question your life choices.
I've done it.
Yeah.
Done it. And it does make me question mine.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to think. I don't know if I have anything else with trivia to discuss.
Beyond, I have a couple. Thomas, what was the most exciting part of Spectacular beyond reclaiming the belt or having the belt again?
So my entire getup was a complete surprise. The only thing that anybody had a clue of, and it was a very, very small circle, was the camo. And even Christian, I think, had a very different idea of what I was going to come out in than what happened. And I was very intentional about that because I had an alternate plan that may work out in the future. I had a totally different idea for my entrance. That got shelved. but I talked to people about it, and it got out, like the rumor mill got out, secrets got out about that quick. I get a text from Christian like, "What is this?" I'm like, "What are you doing?" And so we shelved that, and I said, "Okay, I'm going to do something that's perfectly allowable. We're going to take my character to the next level." One thing that's kind of bothered me all season has been the criticism from some that have been leveled about my character work or the lack thereof, me being wooden or like a droid. And so I said, okay, we're gonna nip that in the bud, but this has to be a complete surprise. So I brought my suitcase with the uniform. I had like the uniform top I wore in Afghanistan. It's called a combat shirt, so you typically wear it underneath body armor and stuff. So that is and the pants are my actual uniform pants. Those boots are my actual boots that I wear in duty. And so it all kind of lined up. I had done the spray painting and stuff. The only person that knew about that was Kate, and then the very small circle of people that I have that train with me. And because I wanted to play and train in that to get used to it. If it was going to be a problem, if it was distracting, the whole thing was going to get ditched, and I was just going to come out in street clothes and maybe a little bit of makeup. So I went back into the bathroom in the green room and I like monopolized it for way too long because it took a little while to put the makeup on. And I come out in full getup, so nobody had seen it at that point. But the green room had a decent amount of people. Chance was the first person that saw me come out, and I won't say what he said to me when I first came out, but it'll forever be like one of my favorite like behind the scenes schmodown moments. But Chance sees me, and then everybody is just sort of like holy shit, like sorry if I can't curse on here, but like holy cow. And so I was like, all right, this is gonna work then. And they even had me like stand, like when I came upstairs to get ready for the entrance, they had me like off to the side, like by the smoking area, so like nobody could see me. And so when I finally came out, it wasn't just the crowd that was surprised. Like Christian, Mark were seeing that for the first time. Ken Knapsack was seeing that for the first time. The entire crowd. So it stayed a surprise, and I was really happy for that. And I feel like it landed pretty well. I'm excited to see where it goes with it. But Christian comes up to me afterwards, and he was like, "That's the get up for every match after this. Like there's not just live, but like digital, like whatever. Like that has to be the thing." I was like, I'm happy that it landed well.
Were you like, I have hours of makeup I have to do. I'm not doing this each time, sir.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing about that, I had used in practice my actual camo paint, and it didn't dry, and it actually, as I started to sweat, because I play with lights on to try to, as best that I can mimic the stage area, and it was really distracting. By the end of it, I was like completely out of my element. It was one of the worst training sessions I had. Took forever to get off. And Peggy, to her credit, said, "Hey, there's this special stuff that I use when I go to Chicago Bears games. When I paint my face, it's perfect. It dries quickly. It doesn't get in your eyes, and it washes off relatively easily." So this is like a week and a half out from Spectacular. I ordered that stuff on her recommendation, got a practice or two in with it. It went well. And I said, all right, we're going to roll the dice. We're going to just hope that this doesn't completely mess up. And fortunately it didn't. So
yes, kudos to Peggy on that. PG. We know her well.
Yeah.
You mentioned before, you talked about rejiggering a bit of the categories and coming up with ideas of that. How much input do you, as Star Wars players, or you to your caliber of being the champion, have with setting up ideas like that and tossing them to Christian and the other admins?
I'd like to think that I have a little bit more political capital now than I did in January to push in on that stuff. I'd like not that I have sway and like we have to listen to what Harper says, because that's not the case. It's more like I would like to think that at this point my voice has more weight, that they have listened to the things that I've said throughout the season, and like this guy knows what he's talking about. Like we recognize that this is a good idea. So at the end of the day, I don't know if they're going to put stuff to a vote, or I don't even know if changes are on deck, if they'll even consult us. What I have tried to do in interviews like this and other places is try to plant those seeds and advocate the best that I can, because I'm not going to call up Christian and be like, let me steal your ear for a half hour and talk to you about this. I'm not going to do that to PJ, but I know that they watch and observe stuff like this, and I have to think that they listen to this stuff. And so the best that I can do is make persuasive arguments about it. And as the season has gone on, they're like, okay, that Harper might be onto something.
You hear that, Colton? We might have people of consequence and clout watching this.
You
So
never know. You never ever know. Christian watches a lot of stuff.
Wow, that would be incredible. I would love that.
That would be great.
Do you ever wade this is because it hits a little bit closer to me as a fan league person. Do you ever wade into the controversies that happen in the other leagues? Because there was a big sort of controversy-ish in the IG title match that got a lot of run in the Schmodown Facebook stuff.
Are you talking about the in Parker's match?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I read about, like, I personally witnessed the aftermath of that, all that, and I won't pull back the curtain on all that, but that unfolded real time to me. And then I always, because I come at this as a fan, like I was a fan, Colton, I think you and I were in the crowd together, like without knowing it, in 2019 at Celebration. Like that was my first like Schmodown live experience. And so I always come at it with that perspective, and I'm always very, very curious to see what fans think of things. I don't personally wade into stuff. I'm very careful about that, like expressing my opinion on it. And certainly that's going to be that particular controversy is going to be like a raw subject for some folks for a while, and it's not my place to weigh in on it. That's between the parties that are involved, and I think I'd be out of line to speak to it.
That's fair. I guess it was more waiting in terms of just being aware of it and reading on it. I didn't know.
Oh yeah. I'm on Reddit all the time. I'm on Reddit like as myself, and so I'm pretty active on there. I don't necessarily I take the same approach on there that I do in interviews and stuff, where like if I, it's not my place to comment on stuff, but yeah, I try to stay in touch with that stuff.
Okay, so I have no idea what this controversy is.
I'll say it. Nobody has to talk about it because it's a big thing that we talk about in our faction stuff all the time. So they're much like, and we talked about it a little bit, Colton, much like with the Amaru and Mike match, with regards to the question difficulty, how it is that questions are set up, where somebody gets like a cast question and somebody gets a question about a sign that's seen on a screen for 2 seconds in a movie. And it was a similar type thing where at the end of that IG match, Parker got a question about a sign that you see in Suicide Squad for maybe 10 seconds versus a quote question, which Mike had gotten quote questions all day and had done very well with them, by the way. But, his probability for being able to get his question right was expandedly different than what Parker's was, because Mike just had to guess a movie of 5 as opposed to Parker having to come up with a slogan, which could have been anything.
Okay, I got it. Yeah, I guess I didn't think about that because I couldn't have got Mike's question right either.
That's fair.
As someone who was just like, yeah, no, neither of these. Like, I at least got the last question, sudden death, right, and I was like, woo! And I was so happy about it.
I'm sure illustrious guest got as well.
Yeah,
I didn't expect it to end there. I have to respect. Robert made a comment on Reddit that I thought was very professional and very mature, which was that, it is pointless and just irrelevant to focus on any individual moment in that match, because as he said, he had multiple chances to win, whether it was the Lord of the Rings question that arguably fell right within his wheelhouse, the Star Wars question, which, quite frankly was gettable, and other moments within there. I think seeing that he was the first person to admit that, like, hey, I had moments to put down the hammer and it just didn't happen. That was my takeaway from that match, that that match did not need to come down to the 5-pointer. It happened to, and it went the way it went and went into overtime. But it, if you're in a position to avoid that, that's the difference between a belt holder and somebody who's coming up just short. And I had a lot of respect for him for recognizing that, even though it probably sucked to have that self-realization.
I respect the players because there was a long string in the Facebook chat, and it eventually led to Mike and Amaru and Robert all getting involved. Amaru and Robert being like, "We're not saying that Mike didn't deserve it. We're not saying that at all. We're just letting." I respect that they want to make sure that they're making everybody aware that they don't have controversy with it. It's us as fans who have controversy with it. But that's our right as fans to have controversy with it, and we'll say it and we'll argue with each other.
Oh yeah,
without having to besmirch the name of anybody. We don't want to do that. Well, some people do. I don't personally, but some people do.
Yeah. All right. So, let's talk Star Wars for a little while since we got the champion here. So, Thomas, my first question is. What do you think is the best Star Wars movie, and which is your favorite? And if those two are the same, good job.
I go all over the place on this because I will say the Schmodown has caused me to look at movies in a different way. I have genuinely really, really liked The Last Jedi since it came out. I was not in the camp at all that criticized it or whatever. It took a little while for it to click with me, but watching it in the way that I have during this season, I love that movie. I could not. It's a travesty that Carrie Fisher and Mark Hamill were not nominated for Oscars for their performances in that movie, quite frankly. Particularly in hindsight, with that being Carrie Fisher's last movie. So, I sort of have an evolving view on some stuff. Nostalgia is big for me, and so Empire will probably forever be like my favorite. Like I could stop and watch the Battle of Hoth right now and just like drool. As a kid, though, Return of the Jedi, I'm like Mark. Return of the Jedi was number one for me. That's always going to be tough to beat. So, yeah, but I'm an equal opportunity shill. I have no problem admitting that.
Yeah, I think Empire Strikes Back is the best movie, but my favorite is Revenge of the Sith, which is not a very popular opinion in the Star Wars.
Should be.
Yeah, because I love that movie. Now it might be because it was I was 14 when the movie came out.
Yeah.
It might be because I was going through that little rebellious teenage phase. So when Anakin doing all that stuff, I was like,
I identify.
Yeah. So it could be that, but no, I love that movie. My favorite character is Emperor Palpatine, and that is where he is just going to town. And that's the part where I don't like Rise of Skywalker as much because it kind of ruined Emperor Palpatine. And even back in the expanded universe, I didn't like Dark Empire. I didn't like the idea of Sith coming back because that was George Lucas didn't want Sith to come back. It was they got dragged.
You stay at the bottom of that reactor shaft.
Yeah, they get their power through life, and the Jedi gain their power in death. And I always liked that. So that's why I like Revenge of the Sith. But
great movie. It's wild that Order 66 happens 1 hour into that movie. It seems like it's at the end, but you've got more than half the movie to go when all the Jedi get killed.
Kind of nuts.
Yeah.
I think in hindsight, people have come back on that one, especially as popular opinion is they compare it to the other two prequels, and they're like, well, you know what? Revenge of the Sith was actually, it kind of tied things together a bit better than how the other two introduced it. So, and I felt the same way. Empire's my favorite, and I think I vacillate between, or I think it's the best, and I think I vacillate between that and Jedi being my favorite. Just Return of the Jedi, just because I I could watch Jabba's barge thing. I could watch the fight on Jabba's barge whenever. I could watch the Battle of Hoth, like you mentioned, whenever, and it still holds up to me, and it always will. So I'm in that camp too.
Yeah. Yeah, like Order 66 is like one of those things. Like we've seen it now probably 5 times in all of canon. Like we've seen it in Revenge of the Sith, and we've seen it in the Kanan comic, which is so sad. And now we've seen it in
Bad Batch.
Bad Batch and Fallen Order.
Wars,
Wars. Like that's one of those things where they're not going to stay away from it, and it's like one of the saddest things when you know it's happening.
Yeah, it's the score throughout that part, just the sequencing, it still gets me every single time.
Yeah, like Ki-Adi-Mundi is running, and then he just realizes, oh, I'm messed up.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Rest in peace, Plo Koon, man.
Yeah.
I used to play one of those Star Wars games on PlayStation 1, and used to be able to pick. I don't remember what it was called, unfortunately, but used to be able to
Jedi Starfighter?
No, it was something. It was like a strafe. It was like a strafing Jedi game, and you could pick. He was one of them, and I forget who else. I think it was like Obi-Wan and Anakin and whatever. But you could also pick like lightsaber styles, and I was always like, Plo Koon's got an orange lightsaber. That's like the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. Why would anybody want to play anybody else? And then he killed on Kanan and Woody in a ship, and I'm like, I feel so bad for him. I want him to do more. I want justice for Plo Koon is the point.
Well, fortunately, Dave Filoni is a big fan, so I feel like we haven't seen the last of Plo.
Music to my ears, Thomas. Music to my ears.
Yeah. Now I don't like. I assume. Do you take in all of the Star Wars media?
Traditionally, yeah. This season or this year has been different, just because the Schmodown has been all-consuming. But yeah, with Dragon Con, usually it's a requirement to keep up with all of it.
Because I will say, like, I know a lot of people like bust on the High Republic stuff because they made that big announcement for it, and they kind of haven't promoted it as much. But I have loved the 4 novels. Like I have talked about it on the show. Like
I'm way behind. I think I put the people that complain about the High Republic into the same camp that I put the people that complain about Dr. Aphra. I'm like, in no world have you read any of this, because if you have, I don't know where you're complaining. You could complain all day about accessibility of the novels and hey, this alienates fandom or whatever, but content wise, quality wise, it's up there with everything else.
Yeah, like I remember back when the latest novel, I'm trying to remember what the name of it is. I'm going to look it up. But it came out like 2 weeks earlier than it was supposed to at Barnes & Noble. So I went to Barnes & Noble to pick up the 3rd novel because I was reading them all for my personal channel so I could review it in time for the 4th novel to come out. And the 4th novel was on the shelf. And as I'm a very honest person. So I took it to the desk and was like, this isn't supposed to be out for 2 more weeks. And they were like, well, let me check that. They're like, it's not in our system that we can't sell it to you. So if you want it, and then we'll just take the rest of them off the shelf. So I got it like early. And I was so happy. I was just like, yes. And like their novels, they're great. I haven't read the comics as much because I just I like to hold comics in my hands.
Yeah.
With all this mess going on in the world, I have not been to my comic book store shut down. So like I have not found a new one, and I don't like using like Comixology if I don't have to.
Yeah.
But like it's great, and I know they revealed like yesterday in the video game awards show like me and Robert were talking about it earlier, like they revealed the new Eclipse game. That's
like, where the hell did that come from?
Yeah,
I had no clue.
Yeah, and it's supposed to
I messaged Alex. I was like, did you know this was coming?
Yeah, and it looks so good. And like young Yoda looks great and all of that. Like it, and then like, like Alex said in his video today, like the Lord Voldemort character at the end was
look very, very, very similar to Darth Plagueis. A little
Yes.
bit. It was getting Plagueis vibes.
Yep.
Jedi Power Battles was the game I used to play as a child, and
Nice.
that game rocked. I
Nice.
found it, and I was like, "That's the game," and that game rocked.
You ever want to like a warp back to my childhood and like just a horrendous game that I loved and poured just hours into? Two, I'll give you two of them, equally terrible. One that you can go watch the cutscenes because they're FMV, full motion video. They had like a whole cast. Was Rebel Assault 2. Cool, very cool plot line. You play as like the most uncreatively named player ever, called Rookie One is your character name. That's how they refer to you in the like the other cast members are referring to. But the plot is the Empire has developed the TIE Phantom, so the cloaked TIE, and it's just decimating the Rebel Alliance, and you've got to steal one so that the rebels can reverse engineer it. Just terrible gameplay, like awful hitboxes and stuff. But I spent hours on our old Mac, like playing that and like sweaty palms. And then the other on PlayStation was the Masters of Terrascasi, the fighting game.
Yes. I've played that too.
The Tusken Raider named Hor, and that's about where it goes from there. But one of my best friends growing up, we would just play that game religiously, and he would only play as Darth Vader once we unlocked Vader. Vader's like so tough to beat.
Yeah.
And my friend knew that it would like get on my last nerve for him. Vader would say this little line at the end, like all too easy when he defeats you. So my friend would like throw down the controller, be like all too easy, and I would just go off. It was like a bomb. Like, no, you don't say that.
That's incredible. I love it. It's like Bo Jackson.
That's right.
Mobile. I used to go to Blockbuster to get like the Pod Racer game. I was like, oh man, Pod Racer? Are you kidding me? They have this in a game now?
Yep. For the N64.
N64. Yeah. Shadows of the Empire to me is unassailable. That's the one that I always go to. I want more content from that, if possible.
Which, I mean, in this last week, spoiler alert for any of you guys that are out there, but they have this new Crimson Reign comic that follows Kira after Empire Strikes Back, and she writes a letter to Prince Zizor, or however you pronounce it.
Yeah, nice.
And she writes a letter to him, and like the last time you saw Black Sun was in the Clone Wars, where all of them get beheaded except the one guy. So I'm like, yes, bring them back. That's great.
Somewhere. That's what I love about new canon is that the authors, the creators, and whether the story group had any purpose or design in this is ultimately irrelevant. But these seeds are planted out there, and so it gives you, like, if you're a Sheezer fan, if you're a Shadows of the Empire fan, you're like, at the very least, that's a nugget that you get, and you're like, hell yeah, I've waited my whole life for this. At the best of it, he's brought in a future story, and so you've got that hope planted, which is really cool.
Yeah, that's like in Rise of Skywalker, there's a Revan division of stormtroopers or Sith troopers, and you're like, no one's gonna know who that is unless they've played the games or like read any book or read anything Star Wars on the internet in the last 15 years. But like for us, that's like a big thing, and now they've revealed that they're doing KOTOR 1 remake, and that's it's gonna be good. Like,
get it.
Oh, I hope it's good. I hope it's good.
It'll be good.
Yeah.
Screw that up.
I mean, I would hope not, but it happens. Like,
they can't and they shouldn't.
Yeah, like remakes don't always do as well as, like, your nostalgic brain has a thought of what the game should be like, and it may not.
Are they just do we know, are they just porting it forward, or are they redoing, like, just
I think it's
reinventing?
I think it's a remaster completely, so they could fit it in the canon, but I don't understand how, with how the High Republic does space travel, how they'll do that. But they could, or it could just be like a non-canon game, which is perfectly fine.
Look, I bought the remastered version of Skyrim, have played through it like 2 or 3 times, so I'm not the person to ask about whether it's appropriate for that sort of thing, because I'll be first in line to shell out money.
Okay. Well, I know you got to go in just a minute. So, and our show is almost an hour and a half long now. So, I guess we'll just call this a day. So, you guys just thank you for coming on, Robert. Well, thank you for being on as always, and then Thomas, thank you. Do you have anything you would like to promote, Thomas?
No, you can find me on Twitter there at the most creative handle ever at Thomas L. Harper. I blog and podcast for a group called The Legal Geeks. So you can find them on Twitter at The Legal Geeks. And when Book of Boba Fett launches on the 29th, we're going to start up a podcast short run where episode for episode, we're going to be breaking down legal issues that are seen in Book of Boba Fett. It was a lot of fun with Mandalorian so far. We did stuff like child endangerment, whether the Mandalorian could adopt, like lawfully adopt Grogu. What can he claim damages for the destruction of the Razor Crest, that sort of thing. So we have fun with it, but we'll start up a weekly gig on the 29th, or soon after the 29th. But yeah,
I love that. Reminds me of fandom when they talk about like Joker's all Joker's crimes and how you would defend the Joker if you're his lawyer.
I have court-martialed Poe Dameron at San Diego Comic-Con, so that is near and dear to my heart, my friend.
I love it.
All right. Yeah, and I guess you guys can follow me on Twitter at ColtonRoberts8, and you can follow the show at SuperNova_show. And yeah, this is good. Robert, you have anything to promote?
Well, we sort of talked about it before this, but if you want to see a match of mine that I'm not particularly proud of, they just did the final act, the 3-part ending thing for Multiplex over there in the fan leagues. I'm in that, so you can watch that if you want, and make comments about my performance. That'd be great. Yeah. Otherwise, you can get me at Facebook at Robert Kastner. I'm in all the fan leagues, and here in the SuperNova show live on Fridays. We don't do that thing where we film on Fridays and have to talk in the future, which is
yeah. For 9 months we filmed on Fridays and then it came out on Sundays. So technically we were making predictions for stuff that already technically happened. So
didn't seem quite as impressive as it does.
Yeah, now it's definitely less impressive. It looks like I am like the worst prediction.
Yes, for you it's bad.
Yes. But yeah, guys, thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. And we're signing out.
Don't forget to tip your virtual waitresses, everybody.